Alrighty, what's up, Rev Tech Summit? Excited for you to join in on our session. This is Tom Alaimo and Meredith Chandler. We're going to be talking to you about the 6 things that all sales leaders should avoid when it comes to sales automation. So, before we tell you about us, we want to just give you a rundown of what we're going to be covering here for the next 20 or so minutes. First, we'll tell you a little bit about us. We're going to talk about why you should care about this topic. Then we will get into the 6 things that sales leaders should avoid as part of their sales automation strategy. Then we'll do a little bit of a self-assessment so you can see how do you stack up against your peers and expectations. And then if you like what you hear, a way that you can stay in touch with us or ask us any questions. So without further ado, let's get it going. Real quick, while I'm talking, like I said, my name is Tom. I spent about a decade in SaaS sales. Now I run my own sales training and coaching business called TA Sales, and I'm excited to be here. Mayor?
Thanks, Tom. Meredith Chandler, everyone. I am currently head of sales at Aligned. So, like Tom, I've been in tech sales for a little over 10 years and excited to share our mistakes with you so that hopefully you don't have to make them.
Beautiful.
So, like Tom said, why should we care about this topic? Well, there's a lot going on today in the world of tech, and with tech sales, there's a lot of pressure to do more with less and to do it faster. There's this crazy hype around AI, right? Who can adopt it fastest? Who can go to market quickest? And what happens when we move really fast, whether that's in our career in tech sales or anything really, I don't know about y'all, but when I move really fast, I make mistakes. And so we're here to share some of the mistakes that we've made along the way, moving too fast to hopefully encourage you all to slow down a little bit, but also, continue to help your teams be efficient and sustainable while you continue to blow your competitors out of the water.
I love it. It's a topic that's very important right now.
Yeah, AI is very, very hot.
So here are the 6 things that sales leaders should avoid with sales automation. Let's get into the tactics.
Yes. So, number one, don't over automate the sales process. So, again, with AI being super hot, everyone's really chomping at the bits to be a part of it, right? There's so many tools out there. Don't forget to run your full evaluation periods. Make sure you check out the tech thoroughly. And don't feel pressured to jump on the AI bandwagon, right? It could be the hot flashy thing, but it could be the best thing you do by not jumping on each tech that comes to your inbox wanting you to buy. So, with that, it's important to remember not to automate the entire sales process, right? Not everything needs to be automated. Yes, there's some really cool techs out there that can help you run faster with bits and pieces of your process, but don't feel pressure to automate everything and don't feel pressure to over automate everything either. So use it more as a way to stay organized and don't rely on it entirely, right? I mean, if you think about the emails that you're getting from bots versus humans, a lot of the time still we can really quickly identify where the bot is, right? And how does that feel as a potential customer? Doesn't feel great. So imagine what your customers are going to feel when they're able to detect that so easily as well. The other thing with over automating is it can very quickly turn into spam. You're going to ruin your domains, your deliverability, your brand. And so that way, when the personalized emails are going through, they might be blocked. And so this over automation might be ruining your personalization without you even knowing it.
Love it. So yeah, I think yeah, I'd be curious, Mayor, what you think. Like, you run a sales team, you've run many sales teams. Like, how do you feel about tech? And when you're evaluating tech, what, thinking about like, is this going to actually move the needle, or is this just like some AI hype and maybe I shouldn't get too excited about it?
Yes, that's exactly what I look for when evaluating. So if it's going to move the needle, by how much? And is that mission critical for what we're working on in our organization right now? So, for example, Yes, email automation is amazing and it's become kind of standard, but is this new tool going to 2x that? And do I even need 2x? So if you're going to 2x the emails, how many more opportunities are you going to give us? And do we really need those opportunities? Maybe we're already flooded with opportunities and 2x isn't going to do anything for us, right? That would actually hinder our sales org. And so we might not want that. So it's really important to look at consolidating tech right now and not just adding tech to add tech because they add up.
It adds up big time. Yeah, I think that's great advice. All right, let's go to number two. So, the next thing that you should not do as a sales leader is try to do it all. So, if you're like me, you spend probably an ungodly amount of time on LinkedIn or listening to podcasts or going to events or watching events like this. And on any of those platforms, you see a lot of folks that know what they're talking about and sharing different best practices. And in a small dose, that can be really helpful in order for you to help take action on something and learn something and add it to your organization. But if you try to ingest everything and try to use all of it out all the time without context, you're going to get overwhelmed. You're going to start taking on too many projects at once, and they're going to start going in different directions. You're not going to have the proper time to really measure things out. So, when I'm thinking about sales automation and maybe within like a sales engagement platform, there's really like three plays that if you were brand new, that I would be starting with. Right. So the first would be to focus on who your personas are. And most of the time when I've sold to maybe 3 or 4 different personas at each company, right? And a persona just meaning someone in a different department, maybe a different title. Perhaps it's like a VP of sales, then someone in RevOps, then someone in marketing. These would be our different personas, right? So I want to message them accordingly because they all have different problems, and my product is probably going to help them in different ways. So one automation that I have will be specific language that speaks to each of those audiences. Okay. The second play that I might have would be trigger based. So you might think of it as a trigger. You might think of it as a signal. You might think of it as intent, all different words that mean more or less the same thing. And this just really means that I'm seeing something online or in other ways that shows that this person might be interested in what we sell, right? They might have gone to our trade show booth. They might have been lingering on our website. They might have watched a demo. They might have clicked through some white papers, things like that. And so I would want to have messaging for our automations for our SDRs or for our AEs that's specific to a trigger so that I can reach out accordingly when I see Meredith is on the website versus Tom who stopped by our trade show booth. They should get different messaging. The third one that I love is I call it the stovetop sequence. And if we take it back, I'm Italian. In Italian culture, stereotypically, we've got the Sunday sauce cooking on Sunday. Okay. And so
Mm.
it's on the stovetop, it's cooking all day long. The house is smelling delicious. You're stirring, you're putting some herbs and spices in there throughout the day. And that's all to say that you need to play the long game with prospects. And so one of the best automations that I have that drives the most business is a sequence where I'm touching a prospect once every 3 or 4 weeks that maybe I lost in a deal or they churned or it wasn't the right time. I'm sending them something that's valuable, that's industry led, industry specific. Maybe you send them this webinar if you're selling to sales leaders as a way to add value to them. And over time, you're building up credibility so that when the timing is right, hopefully you are the first person or the first brand that they think of. And so before we try to go all crazy and do all these different ideas, I love this quote from Bruce Lee that I'd rather master one kick 1,000 times rather than 1,000 different kicks once. But there are people that are doing just these basic filters and automations, dialing them up in a really, really succinct way and see massive success.
It's so important to master one before moving on to the next because in today's society of quick wins and like we talked about previously, moving faster, doing more faster, when you do too much, kind of everything suffers, right? And so I love that you said pick one, master it, and move on. You have a lot of clients that you work with and companies, Tom, that you coach this for. Is there a play that you recommend companies start with, master, and then moving on to the next?
Yeah, I think the easiest to start with, or probably the one that's gonna bring you the furthest, is to start with the personas. And usually what we do, like if I were to work with someone or if I were to just give someone advice, is to come up with a statement of what are the exact problems that you solve for each of these different personas, and just play that out. Like, what's the impact of what their state is before you work with them? What's the impact after you work with them? What's the cost of inaction that they might not see before they work with you that you can help explain? And really writing all of this out and getting it documented. If it comes from customers' words, that's even better if you have them on like a gong call or something like that. But having all of that out really allows you to add that messaging, and you can use that for your website. You can use that in marketing. You can use that in your discovery calls. And I think it can just have the longest amount of mileage to it than some of these other ones.
Makes a lot of sense.
All right, let's go to number three.
Don't neglect data quality. So you're going to be trying a lot of things out. You're going to be mastering your plays, moving on to the next play, mastering that one, etc. And how are we going to know if things are effective or not, right? And so with that, we want to make sure that the data is accurate and it's high quality. So you want to regularly put a system in place where you can you can check your open rates, your connect rates, your conversion rates, and do it on a daily or weekly basis, right? And so if we go back to some of those plays, you're going to be tracking different personas. Make yourself a calendar invite, a recurring calendar event for, either every Monday or every Friday to pull up all the persona plays. So maybe you thought that you should be selling to sales leaders, but you're seeing that enablement is really the ones who are opening and responding to your emails, or vice versa. Maybe you thought enablement was going to be your ICP, but you're actually seeing somehow it's RevOps. So it's important to constantly be checking that data so that you're not letting 4 weeks go down the rabbit hole and then checking on a monthly basis and, oh gosh, we've been selling and doubling down to the wrong persona. While we're looking at that data, it can often can often be easy to just look at outputs, right? Okay, we're not getting enough responses. We need to double down the outputs, or, you need to make X dials or Y amount of emails. But what good is that if they're not producing anything, right? So 1,000 emails for one meeting, it might look like you're doing more because you're sending 1,000 emails, but if you can send 500 but get 2 meetings, that is far more efficient. So don't get too in the weeds in the actual open rates, connect rates, etc. We want to look at the true outcomes like conversion rates and opportunities. With that, you're going to have to clearly diversify your messaging, right? So different personas are going to require different messages. You can't use the same language and the same value proposition to a sales enablement leader as you would a sales leader, right? A sales leader carries a bag, whereas maybe an enablement leader is, measured more on initiatives or projects or skill assessments. So you wouldn't want to talk to one or the other about the other topic because it just wouldn't land. It's going to take a little bit more time to build that messaging up front, but it's going to pay dividends because your prospects are going to read something that relates to them instead of trash your email, disregard your brand, and ignore you for the rest of whatever sequence you have them on.
So do you not have like general activity metrics for a rep that might be on your team of like 50 calls a day, 50 emails a day? Do you do things like that still, or do you measure them different for different people, or you're just really focused on outcomes specifically?
That's a great question. So it's a little bit of per person, but also per situation, right? So if I have a ramping rep, we have success KPIs that have been proven over time. If you can get out of the gates, especially as you're building pipeline, We've taken the data, and if you can do these activities and run effective messaging, you should be able to build pipe. But usually I don't measure those things when people are performing, right? It's when we start to fall behind or pace behind that we need to kind of get back on track and use it from a numeric supportive standpoint, right? It's not, hey, you're at 50% of quota when you need to be at 70%. Granted, we're going into the second month of the quarter. It's more bridging that gap of, okay, we're X opportunities away. How many cold calls do you typically need to make to get that opportunity for it to close? So it's less of a blanketed 1,000 dials a day. It's very working backwards. Here's the gap. Here's your conversion. Here's the activities that you, Tom, need to make based on Tom's metrics to get you to Tom's number.
That's sales math right there.
Hashtag sales math.
Love it. Let's get Tom to his number. Number
With
four.
that, with getting to your number and treating each rep as an individual with their own number and their own close ratios, etc., we have to think about our buyers the same way, right? So we have to stop forcing them into our cookie cutter sales process, and we have to shift the focus to the buyer's journey. So the next mistake that we hope you all don't make is don't ignore the buyer's journey. So when there's misaligned automations that maybe don't consider where a prospect is in the sales cycle, it can come across as tone deaf. And again, you're going to lose credibility. Your brand is going to lose the recognition. So you want to make sure that if you're firing things in automation, that there are also, what would you call them, kind of plays in place where if somebody enters a cycle, it eliminates the cold outreach, right? Because it's not going to be a good look. We also don't want to rely on just one channel. So if your clients are getting calls all day long, an email is going to cut through that noise, right? Or vice versa. And if your prospect is, maybe you're talking to somebody in IT or engineering who doesn't want to be berated by a salesperson, who doesn't care for our, not ego, but eccentric person. Eccentric is what I was going for, personalities, then we need to adhere to how they want to buy, right? Maybe they just want some information, or maybe they'd rather join a group webinar where they can just kind of sit back, listen, and collect information. We have to stop shoving people down our sales funnel. And so that's actually exactly what we do at Aligned. Aligned is a digital sales room. It's very collaborative so that you can really customize kind of a mini website. We call them rooms, digital sales rooms. You can really customize it based on how the buyer wants to buy. So you can put your slide decks in there, your proposals, your follow-up emails, your business cases, all in one kind of mini site. And then you can loop people in as needed. You can leave them comments when you unlock future material, but it's not, berating them again into our sales process. It's working with them on a mutually beneficial buyer's journey.
Shout out to Aligned.
Shout out to Aligned.
Love it. Yeah, no, I think it's super important, and I use this data point a lot that Gartner says that 83% of the buying process happens before they speak with a salesperson. And so even within that is like trying to meeting them where they're at is so important. And trying to see, yeah, like you don't want to go like hard for the pitch if they're just kind of like kicking tires, nor do you want to do that in the opposite direction. So yeah, I love that point, and I love the idea of like helping buyers buy. And not that this is a hard pitch for Aligned, but I just think it's cool that you all do that.
Thanks.
Everybody go buy Aligned. All right, over to number five. Number five is what you do not want to do. You do not want to stop short in your sales automation. So I want to explain a few data points to people of where I'm coming from on this. So the average amount of times that it takes to reach in front of a cold prospect has been rising year over year, and now it's close to 10 touches on an average that going to someone that's cold. So oftentimes I see sales teams that really work hard at crafting like one really good email or making a few calls, maybe leaving one voicemail, and then they throw that prospect in the trash, never to speak to them again, or maybe they'll recycle them a year later. But it's incredibly hard, as we all know, to break through the noise. And so not only do we need quality, but we also do need a level of persistence. So on the right side, you'll see the buyer's pyramid. This comes from Chet Holmes, the ultimate sales machine. And the data shows that in any market, more or less about 3% of people are in market for whatever that is, right, of your TAM. So whether you're selling sales automation software, sales training, or car tires, right? Roughly 3% of people are in market. And it's relatively easy for a salesperson to focus at the top of this pyramid, focus on people that are hot leads, inbound leads, focusing on, if your messaging is about your product and how cool it is and how you're using AI for this and that, you're going to scrape the top of the barrel. But in order to continue to grow and scale the sales team, you're going to need to find opportunities to reach the meaty middle of this pyramid. So these are people that are either not thinking about what you sell and really don't even have an opinion on whether or not that's a problem, or they might think that they're not interested. And what your job is as a salesperson and as a sales leader is to help illuminate a potential new problem, right? You might talk about what is the potential cost of inaction if they don't check out something that you provide, right? So I'll give you a tangible example. I live in Chicago, and there's a billboard near where I live. It's advertising for those like Lime scooters, if you've seen that. And so I think about a Lime scooter. I don't ride those too often. And on one side of the ad, though, it has like Lime scooter, $3 for a day. Okay. And then on the right side, it says avoid a Wicker Park city ticket for $200. And so they're not talking about the scooter as this way to get from point A to point B and it's fun to ride. They're saying, hey, avoid this crazy parking ticket that you're probably going to get and just take one of these scooters. And it might illuminate a problem in someone that wasn't even thinking about getting a ticket, and now they might go ride that scooter in that example. So what is your messaging that you might be able to bring to your audience, whether it's IT or CFOs or HR or whoever it is, to help illuminate and open up a problem that they might not be thinking about? And that's how you want to get to the meaty middle.
You've got the buyer's pyramid here, which just kind of reminds me of the food pyramid. You've got the spaghetti cooking on the stovetop play. You're making me hungry here, Tom.
And everyone knows that spaghetti should be at the bottom of the food pyramid because it is the most essential item.
Spoken like a true Italian.
Yeah, exactly. All right. The last piece that we wanted to talk about is what you don't want to do is you do not want to let your team run solo at this. So oftentimes as sales leaders, we could show up, we could watch a webinar like this or go to an event, learn some things. And we teach it to the team, or in my world of sales training, they might bring someone like our team in and try to make results. And then once that training's done, slowly the team might fade back into, what their normal status is. So the key is that a frontline sales leader really needs to spend time, helping the team, reinforcing. There's data that shows that 90% of anything that people learn is lost within a week without constant reinforcement. So what you need to do is try to turn these ideas into habits. So a few tactical ideas that you could do as a sales leader. Number one, block 2 hours once a week and do call reviews. Listen in, Gong or wherever you're listening to calls to your reps, leave comments on site and start to teach them in the moment about what's going on. Once a month, do a group call review. Take an hour. A bonus point here is you could have one of the reps run it themselves. Say, hey, I'm choosing this call because of X. We're gonna talk about this call and let's look at how I did discovery in this call. Or here's 3 cold calls. Let's talk about how my opener sounded. You can have biweekly AE and BDR meetings where they're helping each other with a different project. Might be trying to break into an account. They might be working on their different metrics that they're working on, their messaging. The fourth thing is, Meredith brought this up already, but tracking metrics every week. Have a standing calendar invite for yourself and any, cross-functional partners if that's where you're at. to track these metrics weekly and see where you might be able to turn the dial in any given play. The fifth piece is think about a monthly play. Once you nail the basics, like I mentioned a few minutes ago, what is one thing a month that you can try? Maybe you want to try video. Maybe you want to try an event play. Maybe you want to try, some sort of new outreach tactic or new cold call technique to see if it might land with your prospects. Try it out, A/B test it. We want to be like scientists as salespeople, where we're constantly running experiments, tracking the data, and you keep what works and you lose what doesn't. And I think the last piece is that as you're doing all of this, try to work one skill set at a time, whether it's for yourself or if you're coaching someone on your team. It's very, one of the most common things I hear from reps is I'm getting so many messages all over the place to try this and try that. I don't really know where to start. So pick one thing, maybe that's your thing of the month, quote unquote, and you work on that with reinforcement until the team starts to nail it, and then you move on to the next. What do you think as the head of sales about this, Meredith?
That's such an important one. I know we're at number 6, and I hate to add a number 7, but if I could, it would be don't try to work on too many skills at once. You really need to turn the ship slowly because reps will get overwhelmed. They'll lose focus. And we all know what happens when you try to move in too many directions at once. Nothing moves. So really hone in on this one skill and set these cadences up that Tom's explaining it. And that's really going to be the best way for results. You got to slow back. You got to slow down to move really fast.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So
where do we go from here? You
assessment?
might be wondering. Yes. So, we want to encourage you all to take a minute to self-assess. How many of these don'ts are present in your org today? So you can pause this recording, you can go back, you can, look at 1 through 6 and write down, be real honest with yourself because there's not going to be anyone in this room or this recording with you. So take a few minutes, be honest. How many of these don'ts do you currently have in your org? If you've only got 1 or 2, not bad. If you've got 3 or 4, you're living a little dangerously. If you're noticing 5 or 6, then you're going to want to spend some time kind of reevaluating how your sales org is set up today. So even though you might have 3 or 4, 5 or 6, we want to only focus on one that we can eliminate this week. So pick the easiest don't or the most impactful don't that you can eliminate and focus on eliminating that one this week. And then please DM Tom or myself with your success stories because we love to hear from all of you, everything that you've been doing, anything you've learned from this webinar. We want to hear from you. We want to hear real life success stories of eliminating something or being able to avoid something from seeing this today.
Love it. And yeah, we would, just to echo that, we'd love to hear from you about your success stories. We're here to answer questions as well. Here's our names. I think the best place, at least for me, is to reach out on LinkedIn. Very responsive. I run TA Sales, which is a sales training company that's focused on building long-term habits with sellers. We bring in top practitioners, people like Meredith, to help do the coaching, and everything's customized. So if you're interested in that or just want to jam out about sales or any other topic, feel free to DM me anytime. Or if you want to talk about my golden retriever, Jack.
Oh, Jack, I'll DM you. I want to talk about Jack. Yeah, so DM Tom, DM myself if you want to talk anything sales, or if you are curious to check out Aligned and how digital sales rooms can help you not overwhelm your buyer and not keep everything completely automated. We're here to help. We're here to carry on the conversation. So find us on LinkedIn.